Hello and welcome to the video. My name is Vic and I'm a writer and an artist from Slovakia. I have recently finished the first draft of my book, and so I have decided it would be a good time to properly introduce the whole project to all of you. So this series is running under the name Dragon Blood, and it is a political epic fantasy featuring dragons, and it's a 4-book series. So as I have stated, I have finished draft 1 of book 1 about 3 weeks ago. Currently, none of the 4 books have their own specific titles, and so they will be only referenced as book 1, book 2, and so on, and the whole series as Dragon Blood. What is the series about? The Eternal of Winter has awakened after a millennia of slumber, and now the world is his for the taking, and it is up to Queen Aurora and Prince Peter to unite the world in time to stop this divine threat. But how can an immortal aspect of the world be defeated? The journey of this book has taken over 10 years at this point. I have started this project when I was 12, approaching 13, and discovered Wattpad. At first it was inspired by How to Train Your Dragon in combination with a dream that I had, but it has since developed very far from that idea. The whole first attempt at writing this book has been published on Wattpad and is still accessible on there, but it is in Slovak, so unless you can understand this language, I'm afraid you cannot read it. Honestly, I love how many friends I found on Wattpad and all the discussion right in the comments after I dropped the chapter, and I'm sort of missing this speedy feedback right now. It took 7 years to finish the whole book, and yes, back then I believed it would be one big standalone, because people were telling me to split it into a trilogy, and it couldn't be split into a trilogy. And it ended up being about 200,000 words long. Only then, when I finished it at the end of 2021, I realized it could be divided not into 3 books, but 4 books with an 50,000 words arc each, could form individual books that could be fleshed out. But also I wanted to write it in English and thought it would be only a simple translation from there on. In 2022 I started this iteration of book 1, but looking at what used to be book 1, I knew it wouldn't be as simple as a simple translation. So the entire thing I wrote at 13 did not fit anything anymore, like nothing, and the whole thing had to be scrapped and a new plot figured out. This took longer than I thought it would. I thought it would be like 50,000 words novella and I would finish it in 1 year, and that didn't happen. And then in early 2023 I lost the whole beginning other than Act 1, which I was able to recover, and this made me lose motivation for the rest of that year and pushed me back away from my initial plan. Only last year in August I started getting fully into writing again, but the plot started growing more and more complex and getting out of hand. And so I finished the draft in July 2025, and now it stands at 140,000 words, which is a full 3/4 of the original 4-book draft. So a lot longer than expected. Now it's time to dive into book 1. So what is it about? In short, a queen and her nephew have to navigate a hostile political situation and keep the queen seated on her throne, while others try to strip her of her power. In Long, Aurora wakes up after 15 years to a world that has moved on, and her absence has catastrophic consequences. The council was tasked to take rule of Teavad while she was indisposed, but they grew too attached to power and now refused to give it up. Peter had never thought he would fully fit into Devon's culture of dragon slaying, and he got used to receiving hatred for it. But one day an accident goes wrong, and when he is falsely accused of murder, his father, the king's advisor, lets him get executed to get rid of him at last. In a twist of events, he is saved by a mysterious woman claiming to be his aunt. To his horror, she takes him to Teavad, the kingdom of terror and dragons. And worse, turns out she is the infamous dragon queen his people fear. He has to figure out his place in this new and dangerous land and figure out what is true about the kingdom and also himself. Meanwhile, the political machinations are getting ever more dangerous, and he has to help Aurora if he wants to stay alive. Meanwhile, dark and cold forces are building just out of sight. So this book is, at first draft, 140,000 words long, which is about 550 pages. Time to introduce the characters. This book is a dual POV, so it has 2 main characters. The first one is Aurora, or Queen Aurora of Tevat, who is the most powerful mage in the world, and thus she believes it is her duty to protect everyone and everything. While she never asked for a position of power, she is a skilled diplomat and leader. She would gladly sacrifice herself to save her kingdom and the people she loves, which leads her down a path of making ever darker and more questionable choices in the name of duty and greater good. Basically, she's on a bit of a villain downward arc with the holier-than-thou attitude of I am the savior, I know what's best for everyone. She's not a bad person, but she's in such a situation that she believes this is the only way forward, and thus it's making her lose footing on her morals. Then we have Peter, who grew up believing to be a human, yet hated by everyone around. And so it was quite a shock to discover that he is a dragon and a prince of Tevat, the country his people deem as dangerous and evil. He struggles to find his place and purpose in this new place, while also fully discovering what is his identity. But the shy boy must grow into a powerful dragon and the hero his people need in the time of facing a raging war. And so his affinity for kindness in the face of darkness might be the key to stopping the conflict. So yes, he is the empathetic child that has to step up into a leadership role and gets entangled in a conflict that initially had nothing to do with him. There are several side characters, but for the purpose of this video, I will only introduce the three most important ones, starting with Carax, who is the captain of Aurora's royal guard and her closest friend. He is a bit of the knight in shining armor archetype, which makes Peter latch onto him as his new father figure in this environment, proving that one can be both powerful and terrifying while also kind. The other important character is Princess Lavender, who is Aurora's adoptive sister. She's the daughter of the late King Nero and hates Aurora for becoming queen instead of her. And so she's on a quest to retake the throne, even if it means supporting the evil gods. So she is the antagonist of the series and has the most personal conflict against Aurora. And lastly, we have Teve, the Eternal of Winter, who is the villain of the series. Eons ago he lost a war against the other Eternals and was imprisoned, but now he is free and none of the Eternals can interfere with him, so he believes it is his right to take the world as solely his domain. Because he is an aspect of winter, he is very cold and detached and not fully understanding humanity. And now it's time to dive into the world building and show off my brand new map. It is not fully finished as some of the names of things like mountains and rivers and lakes are missing, but for the purpose of this video it serves just fine. And I'm very happy about the way it turned out because yes, I made it myself. This planet works in a different way than ours and it rotates differently, which means the biomes run diagonal. This means that most of the world is in the tropical or subtropical sector, and only a little bit of it is in the cold or temperate sector. The world is home to many magical creatures and races, and one of the most dominant ones is dragons. The other creatures that are important to the world are the Eternals. Legend says that the planet was created by the 12 Eternals, each representing some aspect of the world, such as the elements, the seasons, or death and knowledge. The Eternals are tied to the planet and thus are beyond immortality. But eons ago, the Eternal of Evil corrupted the Eternal of Winter with his dark powers, and this resulted in a war like no other, which destroyed most of the life on this planet. Once the Eternal of Winter was imprisoned, and the other 11 swore an oath to never hurt each other ever again. And so they have withdrawn into a sort of exile, no longer interacting with this world. Even in their absence, magic remains a strong presence flowing through everything. It is like a wall of energy inside of a person they can draw on. And while anything is possible in theory, mages are limited by their power, knowledge, and imagination. Mastering the magic requires centuries of studying in a chosen field. For example, to be a good healer, one must have great knowledge about how the body functions and all the processes behind it, just as a doctor would in our world. But in this case, they channel magic to speed things along. So it is possible to do things one does not know how to do and let the magic fill out the gaps in one's knowledge, but this will drain one's power and several times faster than normal, and so it is not recommended. As implied, this makes magic appear a bit sentient, and it has its own will, and thus can be fickle and unpredictable. It is not hereditary in a traditional sense, so sometimes it skips over generations or makes someone much stronger than their parents previously were. And understanding this unpredictable nature is what scholars dedicate their lives to. Currently, there are 6 major countries. Let's start off with Tevart, also called the Kingdom of Magic. This is the country that dragons originate from. The important things about this kingdom is that the monarch is not from one dynasty and the title is not hereditary, but the mage with most power gets the throne. And this position is currently held by Aurora. And because of this, most of the series takes place exactly in here. On the other side of the magical mountain range called the Barrier lies Daevon, the kingdom of the humans. The cycle of advancing knowledge and the ensuing destruction the humans are forever stuck in made the other nations give them this isolated land and leave them to their own devices, not interacting with them and keeping them locked up. Still, even after several of such cycles, a deep hatred for anything magical is deeply rooted in the culture of the humans, even if their culture changes and shifts very fast. This one thing stays very much present all the time around. To the south lies a continent with the kingdom of Brizar on it. As a result of the Eternal of Earth and the Eternal of Water clashing here eons ago, the land is a hot rocky desert with ample rainfall and rivers, and this makes the surface almost inhabitable. So most cities are built underground in a system of caverns and tunnels to protect people from both the heat and the rain. Up in the north is the icy kingdom of Hainor, inhabited by people akin to bears that can survive in the harsh tundra. They are somewhat in a self-isolation and do not interact with the world too much, but not to the extent of the humans, so they remain a little bit mysterious. In the middle is the dark ocean, whose waters are actually black, and on the other side lie the kingdom of Ekrolon and the empire of Ahedia. Both of these are hot and humid climate, making them covered by tropical rainforests, and only on the far side is more of a desert environment. And these two nations have been in a conflict for a while, but in the recent centuries they have finally found peace, and they are hoping it will last. So what is next for this project? I need to take a break. I have been writing too much in the past couple of months, and so I think I deserve time to creatively recharge before returning to this massive project. So far the plan is to return to revisions and rereading in October and start actually writing on it in November. And that means that in the meantime I can work on other things that I have been neglecting, such as the wall building, or I could look at book 2, or the other project I had lying around and could use some love and care. And that covers all of it. I hope you have enjoyed this deep dive into my project, and if any of this sounds interesting to you, since the book is finished, I am actually looking for a beta reader, so feel free to contact me. Either way, enjoy, and I will see you in the next one.